It is 7:05 on June 11th, 2024. This is the second session of the annual town meeting, which began last evening on June 10th. I call this meeting to order. I will entertain a motion to admit. Mr. Studo.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the following non-registered voters or visitors be admitted to the meeting: Rob Carbone, NORCAM, freedom of the floor; Maureen Doherty, North Reading transcript, freedom of the floor; and further that the following non-registered voters be admitted to the meeting and permitted to sit with the officials and departments they serve: Susan Duplain, Town Clerk; Stephanie Conley, Assistant Town Clerk; Delaney Sharkey, Staff; Danielle McKnight, Town Planner; Patrick Daly, Superintendent of Schools; John Eichman, KP Law, Town Council. And also admit the following: Eleanor Richard, Lillian Hartman, Jason Smith, Mark Zimmerman, Debbie Carbone, Todd Warhol, Matt Prince, Allison Kane, Matthew McKelhey, Aliana Rainey, Michael Menipelli, Sophia Novolov, Anthony Spiga, Joseph Parisi, and Dan O'Donnell.
We have the motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous? While they're coming into the hall, as always, registered voters are wearing a yellow ribbon this evening, and visitors are wearing a black ribbon. The tellers for this evening are Lori Capizzuto, and she will count the front from the middle section, from the front of the gymnasium all the way to the back. And on my right, Chris Hayden will do the count from the front all the way back, should we need to take a hand count. Please shut off your cell phones. Please go to the microphone if you're seeking recognition, and state your name and address for the record. And we need to stay on topic to the article and the motion before the body, not skip ahead, or more importantly, we cannot skip back. So with that, all the guests are in? Oh, okay. So, Mr. Studo, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. We will begin with Article 17. Mr. Wallner.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out tonight. Again. Article 17, increase the senior tax rebate. I move that the town authorize the select board to adjust the exemption allowed by statute by increasing the maximum reduction of the real property tax bill up from $1,500 to $2,000 as specified in Article 17 and as printed in the warrant. And this is simply a, this is a work-off, this is known as the work-off program in town, and it doesn't change they're paid at a minimum wage rate. It just allows them to work more hours. So they'll be allowed to work from 100 hours up to about 130.
The recommendation for the Select Board, Mr. Wallner.
Select Board unanimously recommends.
Finance Committee.
Finance Committee unanimously recommends
Discussion. Mr. Wallner?
Nope, I have nothing more to add to that. Thank you.
Amy Sonia, 24 Fieldcrest Terrace. I think this is a great thing. It's an additional $500 per year. I think everybody needs to understand that this isn't a voluntary, they do work. The town does take taxes and OBRA out of this, but my concern is it's an additional 133 hours per senior. Some seniors have difficulty with transportation. Some seniors may not be able to work those additional hours. Are they going to be allowed to work less hours and still get the $1,500, or is it a 2,000 or 133 hours or nothing?
Mr. Gilberto?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, everybody. Just to clarify, right now the number of hours, I believe, is 100 hours worked. It's going to increase to 133 hours. To be clear, the rate at which we are allowed to pay participants is governed by state law. It cannot be more than minimum wage, so we're at the maximum number at what we calculate right now. And to answer the second part of the question, yes, participants are allowed to work a portion of those hours. So if they only work 50 hours or 100 hours, they would get the fraction thereof for the tax relief. And in terms of the taxes being taken out, et cetera, unfortunately, we've been advised by multiple state and federal agencies that we are required to do so because it is a work-off program. Thank you.
Please.
Hi, Roseanne Theobald, 4 Bear Road. I'm wondering which department manages this program, what jobs are available, and the last time I checked, they were mostly clerical. And would there be a possibility for more physical jobs, like something with the DPW, Parks and Rec, school, setting up events? I mean, I'm sure there were people who needed to set these chairs up tonight. So I'm just wondering, is it only clerical, and could it be something more physical? Seniors are not just left to do physical work. Clerical work, we still can do physical work.
Sure.
Mr. Gilberto?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The program is run out of my office, so the town administrator's office is run by my administrative assistant, Karen Marlin, who some of you know and work with for scheduling your hours. The departments and the jobs vary from year to year depending upon departmental need. They are often clerical positions, either in the town hall. We've had some positions in the library over the years to help out. At times there have been positions in the public schools as well. We can look at whether there's some opportunity for something that might not be as focused on clerical responsibilities. There are, for some of our more labor-intensive positions, there are certain requirements for them that folks might need to meet depending upon the position, but we can certainly look into that further.
Would that be something that you would speak to me about if I wanted to participate in something like that? Would I be able to help you with that?
Sure, definitely. Be happy
Okay.
to have your input. Thank you.
Thank you.
Priscilla Fitzgerald, 5 Boak Street, North Reading. I had a question just in that same vein. So are there a limited number of jobs? In other words, do you have 100 jobs? If we had 1,000 jobs, is there any limit that the state makes?
There isn't a limit in terms of the state allowing us for participation. There's a limit in terms of space, meaning where we physically can put folks to participate. And then, of course, the hours of the day is a limitation that we often have to work with as well, depending upon the position.
Okay, so each person that works can only work that many hours?
They can work up to 133 hours.
They eat per person?
Yeah, per person.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening. Kathy Stewart, 13 Riverside Drive. Hi, good evening. My question...
Right there, yeah.
Oh, there we go. My question is what's the income cutoff to participate in this program, if there is one?
I don't believe there's any income cutoff. The requirement's merely age and residency.
All right, thank you very much.
Further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous? Article 18, Mr. Wallner.
Yes, I move to approve Article 18 as printed in the warrant.
Recommendation for the Select Board.
Recommended 4-1.
For the Finance Committee.
We're holding our recommendation until we see your presentation or questions on the.
Is there a presentation, Mr. Wallner?
Yes, I do.
Is it less than 5? Is it 5 minutes or less?
5 minutes.
Okay. Mr. Wallner, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I'm a member of the Tax Aid Committee, as is Mary Ann McKay, Debbie Carbone, and Gail Manning, who's been our spark plug in making this petition come to light as it is right now. So thank you to Gail Manning. What I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to, if you looked in your warrant, there was a significant amount of paragraphs of legalese, very hard to understand. My goal is to make it very simple to understand. And so what the name of this program is the Mass State, they took away my one slide. This is going to be a matching program by North Reading based on the Mass Circuit Breaker program. So let me explain what the Mass State Circuit Breaker program is first, so we have a baseline to work off of. This is, the state sponsors this. It's giving money back to.
Can they get that piece out of there?
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. And so the criteria to get this, it comes through when you do your tax return, is you have to be at least 65 years old. You have to own your home with an assessed value not greater than $1.025 million. And it's based on your household income. So if you're single, the maximum that you would qualify for is at $69,000, head of household $86,000, and married at $103,000. If you make $104,000, you don't qualify. And the way it's calculated, and again, I'm making this very simple, is it's based on your property tax plus 50% of water when it exceeds 10% of your total Massachusetts income. So, for example, if your property tax is $10,500, which is the average in town, and your water is $500, you get to $1,000, you get 50% of that water. It then becomes $11,000. That's compared to your income, in this case, a married filing jointly of $65,000. As a result, your tax credit would be the full tax credit of $2,590. If your income approached $103,000, as you noted up above, it would gradually go away. And by the time it hits 103, you wouldn't be able to qualify for that program. So that's the Mass State Circuit Breaker program. It's obviously reaching out to the most vulnerable people in town who are seniors, who are hanging on to what they have. These slides are... Okay, so some of these slides I think are out of order. Anyways, so utilization by North Reading residents. I just wanted to give a historical timeline. In 2002, there was 115 residents who qualified with a average claim of $633 each for a total of $73,000. If we go up by 10 years, it's 303 residents, and if we go up by another 10 years, it's 412 residents, with an average of $1,087, meaning a total of $448,000 that property taxes was written off of their, in a rebate back to from their taxes. 412 residents in town basically represents 10% of our seniors. So these are seniors who are on the lower income scale, and we're trying to keep them in our town. So why does North Reading need to do more to enhance that? That's a pretty nice offer as it is. Well, we've done a number of studies. You know, one of the studies we did was by the CPC, and what we found, which was no surprise, is that many seniors in town are overhoused and are stuck on fixed income. And so when we talked about even property 2.5 yesterday, by that moving up, they're in more pain than they were before that happened. So when we lose a senior, this is very important, and I kind of wish the parents were here to hear this from yesterday, is that when we lose a senior, we actually, we kind of ruin our financial ecosystem. Let me be more specific. It costs $20,000 to send one child to our schools. We have great schools, and as we learned yesterday, it's below the state average. But to support that one child, it takes 3 houses. So one child in 3 houses is required to send that child to school. If it's 2 children in their household, it takes 6 houses, and you can keep doing the math. So the main point is that our seniors are the benefactors to the school. 67% of what they pay in property taxes goes to benefit the schools. We do it willingly, we do it happily, because it's part of our community, but it's a burden that we put on our seniors, and where they don't get direct services. So this is a chance, an opportunity for us to reach out to those who are most vulnerable to leaving our town, because if they leave our town, they leave their house, and who moves in is families with kids. And at some point, if it tips too far the other way, you're going to have a financial crisis that we've never heard of before. So the main point of this is to reach out to our most vulnerable citizens. We didn't do this without doing our homework. There's various towns in Massachusetts have already done this. You can see some of the list here. They all have their own rules and regs. We went to good effort to try to find the best practices that would be adapted to what North Reading could accept. So this is our CB match. This would be on top of what the state offers. It's to be a match of 50%, so up to about $1,250. And the eligibility, on top of having already qualified for the state match, is that you have lived in your home in North Reading for at least 10 years, that you've received your Mass State CB tax credit from the prior year, and that your liquid asset limit is no more than $275,000. The cost to the taxpayers to do this, we can do a little bit of math here, and again, I'm basing it on the average household, with an average assessed value of $811,000. The average property tax is $10,000. With a CB match, we'd be doing a tax shift at about, and it would cost every household, including the people getting the match, about $75 per year on average. That's what we're estimating it to be. So that's what it would cost each taxpayer. This is hard to see, but it's showing all the various, if you can see it. The average is the 75, about the 6th line down on the right. But you can see, depending on your household, you will pay more if you pay more, but you'll also pay less if you're below the average. Okay? So next steps, if approved by the voters, which I hope it is, the Tax Aid Committee needs to work with Brad Jones immediately, because we're going to be racing a deadline here to get this in place for our next budget. We're required to write a home rule petition, which is what you saw in your pamphlet. It's based largely on what Reading's already done, so we're not reinventing anything. And what happens is, we heard about this yesterday in November, December, when we do tax rates and calculations, we'll be reviewing this program to see how many participated, and the select board has the leniency to be flexible with it, to have it adapt to whatever we see happen in time. Okay, and then one other thing I'll add is that right now the tax shift is entirely on the homes. There is going to be, at that rate, that means that the commercial will be paying less taxes than the homes do, but that will not be our goal. Our goal will be that the commercial participates at the same rate that the current property taxes do, so there'll be no differential between the two. So that is something we have to work through. At this point, I can take questions, and thank you very much for your time.
Yeah. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Finance Committee unanimously recommends.
School Committee, Mr. Buckley.
School Committee recommends 4-0.
Evening, Jeff Gannon, 3 Linwood Avenue. I'm going to briefly bring up Article 16 from last night, but I promise it's not going down that road. In the presentation on Article 16 last night, there was, and it was kind of just mentioned here, like an average increase in taxes for the average home value in North Reading. For this article and the previous one, was that accounted for in those averages?
When you mean the average, you mean the home, the assessed value of the home? Or you mean for the
Specifically for the tax
This would
increase.
be in addition.
This
This would be added on.
This would be added on. So in theory, if you're not a senior, you're paying a little more than maybe was presented, but if you are a senior, you're maybe paying a little less based on those averages that were shown last night. Thank you.
I think that's pretty close, but you'll probably want to clarify that.
Mr. Moderator, thank you.
Mr.
Yes,
Gilberto.
yes, that's correct.
Pat?
Pat Fillmore, 24 Fieldcrest Terrace. You're talking 10% of the senior population. What do you do with the other 90%?
Yep.
And to say they get and even the work hours, you know, they can work up to 115 hours or whatever it is, but in that money, they also get the pension pulled out of it. So they're not making a whole lot of money on their rebate for paying for working.
Yep.
The $15 an hour is probably roughly equal to about 13 or 11. So what happens to the other 90%?
There are.
Mr. Waller?
Yes. Oh, thank you, through the moderator. What the tax aid committee, after we settle tonight and we get this solved and approved, which I hope that happens, our goal is to actually educate the entire community about the other programs that we have in place. For example, there is a tax-deferred tax program that's in place that people can participate with. But we haven't done a good job as a community to get that word out to people. On the website, you can find it, but you have to really...
You have to dig.
Our tax aid committee's next goal is to educate people on what we have, and if we can find new programs to bring to the town, we will do that. We're looking at like Lexington and people like that. So.
But by the time that gets done, probably 70% of the seniors that are being ignored at this point will be driven out of town because of their tax rate.
I disagree with that it's going to take that long. And there's some programs we already have in place, but I appreciate your comments. Thank you. I'm glad you're still here and you haven't moved out.
Tom Magner, 19 Gordon Road. I'm just curious, I noticed that the select board was not unanimous. Most of the votes have been over the last 2 days. I'm curious who was the dissenting vote and why.
Mr. Basie, would you like to speak?
Hi. I voted against it. The reason why I voted against it was similar to the gentleman that got up earlier. I don't think tax shifting is appropriate. I don't like that. This is also off the backs of an override, so I felt there was while it helps the seniors, everyone else is kind of getting hit twice. Thank you.
Mr. Yule?
Jeff Yule, 427 Park Street. On the petition, I had two questions, Mr. Moderator. It's a home rule petition. I'm not sure if I'm understanding why it's under a home rule. If you can explain that to us. And the other question is going to be, what purpose does the school committee have in being recognized as a voting party to this? I can understand them individually supporting or not supporting, but I don't know why they're in there.
I can try to at least answer the second question, and we'll try to get counsel to answer the first one.
For the first question, Mr. Gilberto?
Okay. Sorry, I was consulting on something else. Could you repeat the question, Mr. Yule?
Oh, yes. On the petition, it's a home rule petition. And for the benefit of people who don't know that, I'd like to understand why they're using a home rule petition versus another option.
Sure. And the reason is because this is a program that we cannot offer seniors without approval by the state legislature and the governor. It's something that the legislature has frequently approved in a presentation that's similar to what you see before you, including in nearby communities such as the town of Reading. But we're basically proposing, the select board with the Taxation Aid Committee, it's proposing to go above and beyond what state law allows for tax relief for eligible seniors by having this home rule petition approved.
Through you, Mr. Moderator. So why is it not under a bylaw change?
Mr. Gilberto?
Through you, Mr. Moderator, the town, including town meeting, does not have the authority to offer the program without state approval. So it needs to go to the state legislature in the form of a home rule petition.
Okay, thank you.
For the second question, I mean, the school committee sought recognition, so I called on Mr. Buckley. So, Mr. Buckley, you have the microphone. Chairman of the school committee.
Thank you, everyone. We didn't vote last night because we wanted to hear the presentation as well. I mean, overall, every year we vote on the budget, and so the operating budget, the capital budget. This also impacts taxes. We have been supporting the override. We've thought about the seniors as well. Multiple times in meetings, we discussed this as well, about trying to take on more of the burden, or more of the burden onto the families. And we thought it was appropriate to make a recommendation on this warrant article.
Through you, Mr. Moderator. That's fine, and I think individually you can all, any committee, CPC could be asked the same question and so on. And I think individually you can, but as a voting body, you influence the outcome of the vote by your action. And since it's not really something that affects the schools, then I think as a committee, I think it's inappropriate for you to be making a recommendation. Okay, individually, I understand you can raise your hand, but so that's my perspective on that.
I appreciate your perspective, but I think that we have the right to do that, and it impacts the tax rate, which impacts the schools, and a lot of the taxes go to the schools, so we thought it was appropriate to make a recommendation.
Well, then why don't they put it down here? Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. Mr. Moderator?
We want to debate this.
Right, I'm sorry? Yeah, I think my point is, why are they not on here as a voting body? They should be on here as a voting body, okay? If they're not, then you shouldn't be, asked.
On where? In the
On
warrant?
the warrant. They're not in the warrant as a voting committee. The select board and the finance are.
The select board and the finance committee are required
I know, I
to
understand that.
respond at town meeting to articles put before town meeting.
I do
There are
understand
other
that.
bodies and boards and committees that are certainly well within their, town council, if you want to address this, that are well within their rights to offer the committee's opinion, especially an elected official.
Mr. Moderator, John Eichman, Town Council, through you. Moderator's correct. The Select Board and the Finance Committee are listed on the warrant because their recommendations are required. Other boards may certainly weigh in as they see fit. Those recommendations are certainly not binding like any other recommendation, but in this case, they chose to weigh in, and that's certainly appropriate.
I'm not sure I agree with that, but if that's the way it is for the moment, okay.
Good evening, Lisa Mackey, Adam Street. Sorry, Lisa Mackey, Adam Street. I just had a quick question. Section 6 says that the act shall expire 3 years after the implementation. Does that mean that this is only a hike of, that we pay $75 for 3 years, or is this a permanent increase?
Mr. Gilberto.
Through you, Mr. Moderator. So the model that we're following is for what is what I'll say a short-term program. Other communities have done this, evaluated the program, maybe made adjustments to the program, brought it back to their legislative body, and then gone back to the legislature for approval. I see Representative Jones nodding in agreement there. So I think the intention is to do just that. This is a start for us with regard to a program based upon what we've seen in other communities. It would be for 3 years, and we'd evaluate it in the third year to see whether we wish to continue it or change it.
Thank you very much.
Amy?
Amy Sonia, 24 Fieldcrest Terrace. So a question again about the $75. That $75 is based on the taxes that we're paying right now, correct? Not the taxes that we're paying after the override, that still hasn't gone through and may not, but was voted on last night here, pending the ballot. That $75 is not based on that tax rate or tax assessment or override, however we want to refer to it.
Mr. Gilberto.
Through you, Mr. Moderator. So the numbers that you saw for the presentation under Article 16, they did not factor this into it. This would be above and beyond that. and it would in fact likely escalate as Proposition 2.5 escalates over time.
So that $75 amount could increase to $100 or $150, depending on the value of these seniors' homes and the taxes that they pay.
It really comes down to how many people actually qualify originally for the Massachusetts Circuit Breaker. That's why I showed the 10-year trend.
But my question is, could that number increase
Yes.
to be greater than $75?
Yes, it could.
So that could impact 90% of our seniors and the remainder of the entire taxpayers more than $75 on top of the override that they're going to be feeling.
Yes, that is correct. But to be also clear, every household, including the people that would qualify for this, are also getting the $75 increase. What they're getting is an extra benefit.
But it's going to benefit 10%. 90% of our seniors and the remainder of the taxpayers will feel that increase.
It's going to benefit approximately 400 people.
10% of the senior population, you said. It's in your,
Right, there's about 4,000.
So that leaves 90% plus the remainder, the 90% of the whole senior population and the remainder of the taxpayers.
I don't, and finish your statement, that doesn't make sense to me. 90% and the rest of, everybody gets the tax shift.
So 400 is 10% of 4,000, right?
Right.
So that leaves 3,600 other seniors that this isn't going to benefit.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
It's a safety net for our most vulnerable seniors.
Hi, I'm Mark DeLuca, 52 Burroughs Road. You're spot on in what you said, because I'm one of those people you're talking about. I'm out of here. I'm out of here. I have $21,000 a month coming in, okay? And you guys suck $6,600 out of me, all right? When it's time for a tax credit, you need to give some people some tax credits. And you're gonna make people leave here, and then you're gonna get families in here, like he said, and it's gonna cost you money. So think of what you're doing, sharpen up. That's the school committee. Wake up.
Deb Picciuto, 26 Lindor Road. My mom lived till 104, and she availed herself here of numerous programs that were provided under the state exemptions. They are for people who are widows of the military. There are other programs for disabled. There are other programs that are exemptions that do exist. I am very happy that the tax committee has taken this plunge to add to that repertoire of other programs. I want to make it clear that I and others would love to volunteer to help our senior citizens who are at the highest economic need. Just because you are a senior citizen does not mean you have economic hardships. So I look forward to becoming involved in helping you implement this and implementing the other exemptions, which can be all bundled on top of each other. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So would you flesh that out a little more, please?
Well, there's a number of different programs. It's a matter of just organizing it and getting the word out to people. And that's really the biggest thing that we need to do, is to educate people about what's even available. And also, there's like some fears about like the tax deferred program, what that means to them. And we have to let people know in an organized way by organizing it on the website, by doing public sessions, to let them know exactly what's out there. And that's the next step. We wanted to get this block in place to get this one accomplished, which I think will be a big accomplishment, again, for our most vulnerable senior citizens who are going to be leaving this town if we don't do it. And then build on that to make it a better place for everybody to stay here in town.
So thank you very much. I urge all of us to consider this and vote for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I wanted to add one more thing to the school committee here. I have no children. I've never had any children. All you're doing is taking. Probably, I would say, out of every 4 households, only 1 has children. 3 don't. We're paying for the children. You guys need to think of what you're doing here and wake up.
Just one comment. I think that, it's easy to vilify the schools. It's easy to vilify the seniors. I mean, it's easier to look both ways. The reality is I think the school committee and the select board specifically knows, that there's an ecosystem going on here and we need to all work together. Our community is based on young people being in here, based on students, but we also have people we have to look out for. So I think that the school committee voiced their support because they're aware of these issues and are trying to also bridge the gap so that we can keep the seniors in town and not have them leave. I think we're all trying to work together, and I think that's how we should look at this.
Hi, good evening. Kathy Stewart, Riverside Drive. It would appear to me, unless I'm badly mistaken, that most of your presentation is predicated on the age-friendly North Reading community needs assessment that was based in October of 2021. Most of your slides represent a lot of the figures or are very similar, in fact, to that representation and that study that was taken. I guess I'm going to start politely saying that the study was done in 2021 in October. It is now 2024. That would be the first thing that I would like to make a comment about. The second comment I'd like to make was that I checked this morning, there are a little over 3,300 seniors in North Reading that are over 65, and we represent 21% of the population, and we bear the burden for the cost of the schools. I voted for it before. I believe very much in the education. I find myself very saddened by the lack of services, and I would need to refrain from that to a little bit, a lack of some of what is available, particularly in these tax rebates. The tax rebates that you're referring to are also part of the same presentation from 2021. Now, in this rebate that we have here, I would like to know how many people would actually qualify when we look at that. Out of the 33,000, we know that there's 400 or 500 people that are our most vulnerable. They definitely need to be taken care of. But for the rest of us, when you're looking at the income levels, how many people actually qualify for that? That would be the first thing. And my understanding when I called Town Hall this morning is we would have to get the government fiscal information regarding what the incomes are of everyone, because the town does not have that. And I would be very curious as to how many people are actually going to be available and be able to participate in this. I, for one, would not be able to. Now, the other thing that I would like to just add is, as part of this same presentation from 2021, one of the things was affordability and economic security. Property taxes was the most important thing to seniors at that time. It still remains that. And it said, ideas for action, and I'm quoting, consider opportunities to reduce property taxes for those needing assistance. For example, freeze property taxes for those over a certain age. I would like to just maybe that could be considered, or has that been on the table for consideration? Expand access to existing property tax relief programs. We're putting in place something that you knew about 3 years ago. You know, I know things work slowly, and I'm not sure how many people this is really going to affect, but it seems to be a bit late. Not that I wouldn't mind volunteering to help with that a little bit. And the other one was, and this has been brought up, and I appreciate you mentioning it, that ensuring that those who are already eligible are aware of how to apply and what's available. I haven't seen a lot that is in writing of what's available to us for that other remaining 90%. There's a lot of us, we don't want to leave town, but we're not seeing a whole lot for us. And when I looked at what the override was providing for, I looked at what was there for the elder services category. There wasn't a whole lot. And I do understand, and I've talked to some folks, that a lot of people don't take advantage of the services that there are in town. A lot of it has to do with a lot of us seniors still work. A lot of us seniors aren't incapacitated or have physical restrictions, so we don't always take advantage of it. But there are other things that might be under consideration, like maybe the O'Leary Senior Center, fixing it up, having a decent senior center, and other things that might be better for us seniors, just a little bit. I would just like you to take that under consideration, and if we could find out how many people is really this going to affect, that would be most appreciated. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. Sheila Maxwell, Burroughs Road. And I would just like to address everybody. Huh? Hello?
The other mic.
The other one?
Here we go.
All right. This one? Okay. Well, anyways,
You got to step closer.
I was here last evening, and I would like to say that the pie is 100%, and at least 65% is going to the schools, okay? And here we are asking for a couple of crumbs here, the seniors. Now I look at this beautiful school that's over the top. There is like everything. Theaters, oh my God, look at the theater. The gymnasium, the swimming pool. These are all beautiful things. Then go take a look at the senior center. And how about the fire department? And how about the police department? The school isn't the only thing in town, okay? And I just like you all to be aware of that. And we are here begging for a few crumbs here. And the seniors help to build this community, okay? And like you said, you know, if you chase the seniors out, you're losing people, okay? And you're chasing us out of here. So, and like he says, sharpen up. Because you know what else are you going to have here? You know, we're looking at a country here that's falling apart, and we keep printing money, printing money, printing money. And you're thinking the money's just endless money, and people can just pull it out of anywhere. But we can't, okay? And so you're going to come to the end of the road somewhere. And, you know, just keep this in mind. And I don't know how the school board is involved with us getting a tax break or whatever this is here, because I don't know where you guys can impose yourself into that, but apparently you can. But anyway, you know, here we are. You think it's funny. It isn't funny. It isn't funny at all, because we're paying like double. We're asking double for, you're asking, the price of everything's gone up, okay, and we all know this. So my question to you want me to ask a question? Yes. Is can you please give us a little consideration?
Just a brief comment. I've been involved with the Council of Aging for like well over 10 years, and the two biggest issues that senior citizens have always come back with consistently has been property taxes and transportation. While we may move slow, we're getting it done. On the property taxes, we're making little bites, and on the transportation, we've had a huge successful year this year. So it really we've made a lot of progress in transportation, a lot of utilization, and I'll also say our Council of Aging, if you go there, the programs that Kim Manzelli and her team are doing are fantastic, and they're expanding. So it is not being ignored. It doesn't move fast, but we're doing the best we can in a very consistent manner.
Ma'am.
Deb Picciuto, 26 Lindor Road. I'd like to call the question.
We have moved to the question. All those in favor of move to the question, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion is on the floor. We'll now vote on the motion. All those in favor of the article, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Article 19, I move to appropriate from free cash the amount of $340,804 and from the ambulance reserve the sum of $164,323 to fund one-time recruit and paramedic training costs as specified in Article 19 as printed in the warrant.
I have a motion for Article 19. Can I have the recommendation of the Select Board?
Select Board unanimously recommends.
Recommendation from the Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Article 20, Mr. Wallner.
Yes, thank you. Fund retirement obligations. I move to appropriate from free cash the amount of $85,000 for the purposes of funding fiscal year 2025 retirement obligations for town employees as specified in Article 20 as printed in the warrant.
Recommendation for Article 20, Mr. Wallner.
Select Board unanimously recommends.
Finance Committee.
Finance Committee unanimously recommends.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Article 21.
Transfer funds to other post-employment benefits liability trust fund. I move to raise and appropriate the amount of $425,000 to be transferred into the other post-employment benefits liability trust fund as specified in Article 21 and as printed in the warrant.
Recommendation from the Select Board, Mr. Wallner.
Select Board unanimously recommends.
Finance Committee.
Finance Committee unanimously recommends.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Article 22, Mr. Wallner.
Authorize treasurer to enter into compensating balance agreements. I move to authorize the treasurer to enter into compensating balance agreements as specified in Article 22 as printed in the warrant.
Recommendation for the Select Board, Mr. Wallner.
Select Board unanimously recommends.
Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Article 23, Mr. Wallner.
Rescind authorization to borrow. I move to pass over Article 23 as printed in the warrant.
Recommendation from the Select Board on Article 23.
Select Board unanimously recommends.
Finance Committee.
Finance Committee recommends to pass over.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Article 24. Mr. Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Excuse me. Article 24, I move to appropriate amounts to purchase items and complete projects of a capital nature in the amounts from the source of funds and for the purposes as specified in Article 24 as printed in the warrant, including equipping vehicles and for all items, all incidental and related costs, and furthermore, in all instances where bond is listed as the source of funds, said borrowing will be pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Sections 7 and 8, or any other enabled authority, and to authorize the treasurer with the approval of the Select Board to borrow said specified sums and issue bonds and notes.
On the motion, can I have the recommendation from the Select Board? Mr. Massey?
Select Board recommends.
Finance Committee?
Finance Committee unanimously recommends.
The School Committee?
School committee unanimously recommends.
Laurie, you have a presentation on the article? It's 5 minutes or less, right? Yep.
Right. Hi, I'm Laurie Ann Galvin, the Finance Director. Sorry. Laurie Ann Galvin, Finance Director. What you see up on the screen is our capital plan. We have a capital committee made up of 10 members, representatives from the school committee, finance committee, select board, and other town officials, myself, the town administrator, the assistant superintendent in charge of finance and operations of the school. And we, each year in the fall, we receive the department's request for capital. We meet with each department, they make their presentations, we gather together, vote, we each rank the projects, we vote, and this is the plan that we come up with based on our available funds and borrowing that will fit within our operating budget, our debt service. So I won't go through every project. We authorize a total of non-enterprise of $3,916,482. The top project, the Park Street Bridge, a big portion of that project, this is additional funds that we need. The project was originally funded through ARPA. We stand the chance of getting a grant of $500,000 on this project. So although we are appropriating $630,000 because we need that to get into contract, we have a deadline of December of '24 to get into contract on anything ARPA related. We have a chance of getting a grant of $500,000. So if we do get that grant, we will only be borrowing the additional $130,000. On the ARPA funds, anything that we do not get into contract or that we do not spend, we have to go through a closeout process through the Department of Revenue. And when we fill out this year's recap sheet, which is to set the tax rate, we report all our budget to the state. Those funds will be closed out and eventually go to free cash if we do not obligate them or spend them. So the funding sources for these from free cash will be $760,482 and borrowing of $2,205,000. And then our other sources, the $571,000 for the ambulance will be coming from ambulance revenue. The $70,000 on the window replacements is actually from a prior article that we authorized that we had leftover bond proceeds, and the $310,000 for the street sweeper is going to come from cell tower revenue. We also have projects. Do you want to go to the next? So, although we approved over $3 million in projects, there was still $1,424,000 of projects that we were unable to fund. They are everything from vehicles to improvements on buildings, and like the last item is a rather large one, HVAC replacement for the police station. These are things that we just cannot fit into any of our funding sources at this point. Each year, the departments bring them back and they will be considered in the future. Major long-term items that we had discussed last night that will, if the override is passed, will be part of the debt service that we funded through the override, but otherwise will likely need a debt exclusion, are $4 million for each of the Chestnut and the Burroughs Road bridges, a ladder truck of $1.9 million. The replacement of engine 4, the pumper truck, will be funded. The $1.1 million will be funded. Last night we closed out the 102, 104 Lowell Road from the building permits and electrical permits and things that were associated with the Martin's Landing development. Once that is closed out, goes to free cash, we'll be funding the pumper truck from those funds. And then the $400,000 from the town center sewer, that project was funded. This was a standby in case we needed more, but it is looking like we will not need those funds. The remaining items on the capital plan are the enterprises, primarily coming for Parks and Recreation, coming from their retained earnings, the Water Department from their water infrastructure stabilization and their retained earnings, and transfer from prior bond proceeds. The Hillview will be borrowing for their roof project, transferring a small amount from prior bond proceeds, and the rest they will be funding from their operating revenue. And that's it. Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. Gilberto.
Mr. Moderator, through you, just one clarification. On an earlier slide, we indicated that the number of voting tabulators is 4. You'll have a copy in your warrant. It's actually 8. So the number to be approved in the motion is what's in your warrant. That's an error. Oh, okay. Is this better? Much better, right? So there's just an error in the presentation. It says that there are 4 voting tabulators to be purchased. If you're looking at your warrant, it says 8. 8 is the correct number, and that's the number that's called for in the motion that's on the floor. My other just comment that I'll make is the top 3 projects that Mrs. Galvin mentioned are at the moment contingent on the override. Those are not proposed to be authorized here. They would come back to town meeting after the override vote has been taken, so likely in October. So to be clear, you're not authorizing those. We're not able to authorize them right now, but they will be brought back for authorization here at town meeting, most likely in October. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Mr. O'Leary.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Before I begin, I just want to acknowledge one person in the audience here this evening who happens to be my wife. It's our 41st wedding anniversary, and we want to thank you for sharing it with us this evening. I promised her a night out on the town, so she's the most tolerant woman in the community, let me tell you. With that, Mr. Moderator, I move to amend the main motion as follows. Capital. I move to appropriate the amounts to purchase items and complete projects of a capital nature in the amounts from the source of funds and for the purposes as specified in Article 24, as printed in the warrant, excluding the project entitled Signalization of Park Street and Central Street, including equipping vehicles, and for all items, all incidental and related costs. And furthermore, in all instances where bond is listed as the source of funds, said borrowing will be pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Sections 7 and 8, or any other enabling authority, and to authorize the treasurer, with the approval of the select board, to borrow said specified sums and issue bonds and notes. I'm just taking it out. Plucking it out. It's basically no wording. I just read that. Yeah, we're sure that that's what that does? Yes. Yeah. It's the exact same thing. It's just that the board decided to put it. Oh, you did? Yeah. Okay.
I understand it, but the rest of the body doesn't.
Yeah.
So you want to explain what you're trying to do?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. All I'm doing is taking out of the project, and again, it's important that everybody supports the Capital Improvement Planning Committee's recommendations here under this article. I am taking exception with one project. So what I'm doing is I'm just plucking that one project out of the equation. It's the $350,000 in borrowing for the signalization, the complete signalization of Central Street and Park Street. In my mind, it's a bit premature. For those of you who have been traveling Route 62 over the last few months, I don't know what you find acceptable or unacceptable and what you find the situation to be and what you think it's going to be once the Chestnut Street Bridge is reconstructed and Chestnut Street reopens again. Who knows? All I know is that about 3 weeks ago, I had to take a little trip down to St. Teresa's Church and come back to Oakdale Road. Again, I live just a stone's throw away from here, right over here. 26 minutes, 6 light cycles. And again, from right here to go down to the Hornet's Nest, which is just down by the library, 22 minutes trying to get through the lights, get across 62. Something's not working. Obviously, or working well. I will concede right now that that intersection is far safer than it was before, because at the busy times of day, people can walk faster than people can drive through there. The traffic has been slowed down and stalled out for sure. As you recall, when the bridge on Chestnut Street, we were forced to close it down, all of the traffic that comes down Central Street from a north to south direction that used to go Chestnut Street past Moynihan Lumber, the DPW garage, now has to come down Central Street. People who live on the west side of town, excuse me, on the east side of town are now diverting and going onto other roads such as North Street to cut across. We don't have a stable situation here at this particular point in time. What we have is a situation that's still in a state of flux. We had an independent study done of that intersection back in 2021. It did not meet warrants, which means the state has certain guidelines. It did not meet warrants for full signalization at that particular time. But then we had COVID coming in, we had to make all sorts of adjustments. Now we have all this traffic. Probably 80% or more of the traffic that's running from south to north on Central Street in the morning and the other way going back is going to go away in about 2 years when the Chestnut Street Bridge is reopened. My suggestion is, before we go ahead and spend $350,000 and do full signalization of this thing here, when we don't know what the situation is going to be, what the true traffic counts are going to be, why are we spending the money now? It would be more appropriate to wait. It would be more appropriate to get true traffic counts at the time when we have a normal situation, and full signalization right now isn't working. You have, from Central Street and Park Street, oh, actually from the center of town, from Ryer's store, Bachelor School, down to Kitty's, 5 sets of lights right now. You have 3 sets of lights inside of a half a mile of each other. It's not working. 26 minutes to travel a mile and a half. I don't know if you find that to be acceptable. It's a temporary situation right now as far as the Chestnut Street Bridge being out. All I'm saying is, let's pull this out. Don't borrow the money now. Don't spend the money now for full signalization. Let's find out what the traffic flow really is going to be and what the needs are. There's no doubt. And for my friends who live on Central Street, yes, you know, it's difficult pulling out. I live off of Oakdale Road. It's difficult pulling out onto Route 62 safely, anyway. However, to spend for full signalization right now, I think is untimely, and we would do better to get the full situation assessed after the Chestnut Street Bridge is open and find out really what we need to do to make it work. By the way, the Select Board previously, and we have taken care of this, there's signalization that will remain there for pedestrians and bicycle riders to get across over to Ipswich River Park. That's going to remain there forever anyway. So that's a good thing. That makes things much safer now. So all I'm asking for you to do is support me and pull this out. When the Chestnut Street Bridge goes in, let's find out what the real situation is and get it done, because right now it isn't working. We cannot and have been unable to synchronize those lights to get it to work properly. Thank goodness our public safety officials have the ability to control those lights when they have to go over to the west side of town. Because if they didn't, they'd be sitting in the same traffic that all of us are sitting in now. And again, it's only for about four hours in the day is when we have the biggest problems here. And to pay $350,000 now without a full understanding as to really what the situation is and what it's going to be moving forward, I don't think is appropriate. So all this motion does is leaves everything intact. I ask you to pull this $350,000 out, and then we'll deal with it at a later date. Thank you.
Ms. Gonzalez.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. What Mr. O'Leary is proposing to do is spend some more of your tax dollars. And I'll explain that. Because we did a traffic study. The traffic study did warrant the light. That intersection is going to be redone. That's already happened. That is going to happen. This is a temporary light put there for Chestnut being closed. When we do the construction, if we do not put a permanent light in there during the construction, when the Chestnut is done, the temporary light will come down and you will no longer have a light there. A light that people have, I've gotten, I can't tell you how many phone calls that it's working. It's working. You don't have to play chicken coming across Central Street anymore. You have your turn and you get to go. I understand on 62 you might have to be patient and wait a little longer, but that's temporary. When the Chestnut Bridge is done, that traffic's gonna lighten up a bit. But we'll come back to before that was even closed, there were more accidents there than there are now. So that has been confirmed by the chief, the fire chief, and the police chief, that there have been less accidents, even with this more volume of cars, less accidents since the light has been up. So I would please ask you all to not remove this, to keep it in the capital budget, to do it while we do the construction. It will be far cheaper to just put the light in while we're constructing that intersection so that it's permanent. Otherwise, when the light comes down and everybody says, oh my gosh, there's all these accidents again, this is terrible, well now it's gonna cost you a whole lot more money to rip that up and put a light in. So I would plead for you to please leave this where it is. Thank you.
Rita, and I just want to let everyone know, right now we have the amendment, so the amendment is superseding the main motion. So we're going to deal with the amendment first. So please talk to removing the lights or leaving them in at this time. Thank you.
Rita Mullen, Abbott Road, 29 Abbott Road, North Reading. I want to just speak to 50 years on that, kind of on that corner within a stone's throw, driving and living there. Absolutely one of the safest things we've ever done, I believe, is to put that in there, whether we have construction in 3 years or not. If you think of it, everybody that goes down that road are younger kids that are the ones that just started getting their license, so they're between a year or two getting their license. We have, where I work, truck drivers that come out every day and say what a danger that was before. I would rather be patient. To me, it's more of a safety issue, but to save $360 to save one senior that's going to the senior center, or any of the 2,000 kids and families that are coming back and forth from school, absolutely nightmare. I believe it should stay in. And Susan O'Leary, happy anniversary, if it is happy. Thank you very much, Susan. Take care.
Ma'am.
Sasha Spala. I'm at 121 Chestnut Street. I live on top of both this intersection and the Chestnut and Rural intersection.
Can you get a little closer to the microphone?
Is that better?
Yes, it
Can you
is.
hear me? Okay.
Thank you.
So I live right on top of both this intersection and the Chestnut and Haverhill intersection, and I can attest to the fact that this has been far safer. I go through this intersection basically every single day. It is far easier to make that light, both as a driver and a pedestrian and a cyclist. I do, the trio of transport. My question, and I haven't been here for previous meetings, it seems like the decision right now is light or no light, essentially. Was there any other option for us besides putting in a permanent light, bump outs, anything to slow down traffic on Park Street, anything else to make that intersection a little bit safer that maybe wasn't the cost of the light? I just want to know, if it truly is, the two options are we have this light permanently or we don't have it at all. Or anything at all, sorry.
Thank you. So
Mr.
yes,
Gilberto.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, through you. A year ago, our annual town meeting had a very similar discussion. with regard to this intersection, but did approve funding for a construction project at the intersection without a traffic signal. So there are improvements that will be made, including some safety improvements. They're not going to be overly significant because of the very narrow area for which we can use for construction. If you're the house, I think you are, you're kind of well aware of that at this point. It's very tight in that spot. So there are other improvements that will be made, and for the benefit of the body, I believe the Department of Public Works intends to put this project out with or without a light to bid in the fall or early winter for construction, next construction season. I think most folks in the room are aware there are 2 other intersection construction projects going on this construction season, funded last year.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Mr. Macy. Hmm?
I got nothing to say.
Oh, why?
You can go to the next question. I got nothing to say.
Oh, why were you standing there?
Oh, I thought I was just going to the next part. I'm new here. Give me a break.
You gonna sing to us now?
I'm ready. I want to ask.
I thought you were seeking recognition.
Sorry.
Stand behind the table then. Mr. Yule.
Mr. Moderator, with all due respect to both views on this, I can understand the safety issue, and it's obviously very important. Unfortunately, it kind of signifies the way we drive in North Reading. But you have Central and Park, and you also have Chestnut and Park. You have 2 intersections that are historically, I think, very unsafe looking and pretty much unsafe. Both those intersections, from my perspective, should be, I don't know what the term is, redone, reshaped, because on Chestnut and Park, you have one side that's straight, and you have the other side that's this huge opening, and people just try to figure out how to navigate from Chestnut onto Park. The same thing is true on Central Street. So before putting a light in, I think in both cases, it is advantageous to redo those intersections in such a way that they are safe, and then determine whether a light will benefit the community at that point. Now, I think they said they are doing Central and Park. I believe they said that. I might need to be corrected on that. But you also have the intersection of Chestnut and Haverhill. And you got to prioritize here. Haverhill and Chestnut are pretty dangerous. They're to me, the most dangerous of the 3. So rather than spend, what's it, $350,000 on a light, when we can put that money into improving the intersection so that it's an easier intersection to drive along. I think Steve is correct. We have way too many lights. I've seen little villages in Long Island go from having a small amount of lights to having a light every 5 feet, it seemed. Okay, and all you wind up is with traffic. Okay, they call it traffic calming now, but it's traffic nonetheless. Okay, I've seen traffic from Chestnut and Chestnut, Central and Park go all the way well past Chestnut, well past that. Okay, so think about what's being done here. So again, I repeat, the purpose is, I think you improve the intersection first, and then find out whether you really even need a light or not. Thank you.
Amy?
Amy Sonia, 24 Fieldcrest Terrace. I think I'm a little bit confused, because I know there's been some informational sessions open to the public, and I believe that there are plans to do Chestnut at Haverhill and Central at North. I am not aware of any plans for Central at Park, unless I'm just forgetting it.
Mr. O'Leary.
Yeah, the money was appropriated to do a reconfiguration of that based upon the study that was done by our consultants. With or without signalization, there are improvements that are going to be made. As the town administrator pointed out, the intention is probably to go out to bid this fall and get it ready for the next construction season.
But those plans have not been presented to the public, is that correct?
They were presented at town meeting for appropriations, and the appropriations were made to have them done.
But we've had informational, I think I'm just confused. We've had informational sessions about the other two intersections, not this, correct?
Mr. Gilberto.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So what will happen is we will go through a design process, finalize a design process through the DPW. There'll be a draft that will go to a public information session and then ultimately put out to bid. But that last step has not happened. Our intention is to do so, I think, in the late summer or fall to be ready to go out to bid over the late fall or winter.
And the funding for that design process has already been appropriated?
Both design and construction was appropriated last June.
Okay. And just one other point I want to make to Stephen's point. 3 times in the last month, I have come down 62. I actually try and avoid that area. If I have to get over to the high school or tries, and I go down North Street to Haverhill Street. But 3 times in the last month, there have been tractor trailers coming out of Central Street. And I couldn't figure out why I was backed up to Damon Street one day and backed up to the dancing school another day. And the third time, I can't even remember where I was. But those tractor trailers are having a huge issue making that turn, and it's creating a significant problem for traffic.
Who was first? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Robert Atkinson Jr., 82 Elm Street. The young lady who was asking about alternatives to a signal, I was here last October's town meeting, and I think the police chief or the fire chief, or maybe both of them, addressed that. And because I asked about a roundabout, and he said that at least at Central and Park, there's not enough room for a roundabout. But maybe he could readdress that for people who weren't here, because I don't want to put words in his mouth. But, alternatives to a signal like roundabouts are becoming quite popular. Maybe not at that intersection, but some of the other intersections under consideration might be worth a comment.
Mr. Gilberto.
Through you, Mr. Moderator, so when these projects come to you to be funded, there's a high-level analysis that's been done to look at alternatives. And generally what we are seeing is that the amount of land that would need to be acquired by the town from private property owners in order to do a roundabout is impactful on abutting property. So that really hasn't been a great option for a number of projects, including this one. It's very tight at Park and Central Streets, especially coming from all directions, honestly. And where it's not tight because of private property ownership, there's conservation property or parkland.
Yeah, I understand. I just wanted to put the issue out there just to make sure it gets heard. I can understand the limitations. Thank you.
Hi, Frances Selkirk, Marblehead Street. Do you need my address or? Sorry, okay. I feel like intersection redesign has to be an expensive alternative as well. And I don't really understand the objection to traffic lights. I've found the installation of a traffic light at Central Street and to be a big improvement in terms of getting through that area, particularly coming from Ipswich River Park, which is probably going to see more traffic as we work there. So I just wanted to put in a word in favor of the traffic light proposal. Also, Central and North, which is a terribly dangerous intersection, and has to either be that or a four-way stop.
Sir.
Mark Penny, 12 Irwin Road. I lived in town my whole life, and you all know, if you've been here long enough, dozens of people get into accidents there prior to the Park and Central, prior to the lights going in. And is the police chief here? Because I like to know, but I have a feeling that, what's the accident rate now with the lights right now?
Mr. Gilberto.
Through you, Mr. Moderator, I believe the chief is prepared to speak to accident information, yes.
Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name's Mark Zimmerman. I am the police chief here. So I ran the statistics from 2021 to 2024. We've had 9 accidents at that intersection. Now that data is collected from the Registry of Motor Vehicles, so it's any accident reports that they received at those intersections. In 2021, we had 4 accidents. In 2022, we had 4. In 2023, we had 1, which
It was fatal,
unfortunately-
right?
Excuse me?
It was fatal.
Yes, it was a fatal accident. In 2024, we've had 0. So I did go back and I looked. The lights, I believe, were put in sometime in June of 2023. Since that time, in our in-house system, we've had 3 accidents that were close to that intersection. One was the fatal. The other 2 I looked at, I have here, were not related to the traffic signal. One was operator inattention that rear-ended another vehicle, and the other one in the accident report stated that the operator's foot slipped off the brake pedal, causing it to rear-end the other vehicle. So that's what we have since the lights were installed back in 2023.
Okay, folks, it's a no-brainer. You know, be a little patient. Sorry, Steve, I don't know what your problem is. You know, you must be always running late or something, because I go through there. Yes, I understand. But you know what? It's worth it.
Hi, I'm Matt Meyer, 2 Camo Road. I'd like to call the question.
Move to the question.
Move to the question.
Motion to move to the question. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? I'm sorry. I just took a vote on moving to the question, okay? Can I finish speaking now? So now we move to the question. The question before us was the amendment. If you gave me a moment. The question before us was the amendment. So this is the amendment. If you want the lights there, you say no to this. This amendment will remove the lights from the main article. If you want the lights there, we need no. Okay? Everybody clear? All in favor of the amendment? No.
All in favor, there was no. All against.
What? Am I on a different planet today? Are you in favor of the amendment? I should hear silence. No. Have you been following along? All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed? No? No. Thank you. We're now back to the main article with no amendment. Oh, you want to speak now?
I think I already made the motion, right?
Yeah. Is there discussion, any further discussion on the capital motion? On the main motion? So we can talk about anything but the lights.
Amy Sonia, 24 Fieldcrest Terrace. Just doing the math quickly and looking at all the bonding projects. The first page says 2205, so $2,205,000 are being bonded. If you go to the next page where the Hillview roof is included in that, that's an additional $1,900,000, give or take a few dollars. Just something I'm going to touch on again that I touched on last night. We have $16 million in the bank from town-owned land, Yes, it is earning an exorbitant amount of interest. But if we continue to bond and pay interest out, I get a little confused as to why we're doing that. That $16 million belongs to the taxpayers, not the Board of Selectmen, not the finance director, not the town administrator, not the finance committee. The taxpayers have to make that decision, and they should be educated about it. And I'm going to say it every time because I feel the lack of education is the problem in this community at times.
Mr. Gilberto.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Again, as I indicated last night, the funding in the town-owned land account, most of which came from the sale of the Pulte property, can be used for capital investments or for debt service. The plan that you see in the warrant and up on the screen, as corrected as I mentioned earlier, is something that we've been following for, I think, 12 or 13 fiscal years through the Capital Improvement Planning Committee and process to jointly come up with a capital plan that fits within the town's tax levy each year. It's done cooperatively to bring something to you that we're generally all in agreement on. I think we all continue to be concerned about some of the larger and more expensive projects that are on the horizon that I mentioned yesterday that would likely require additional taxpayer funding in the form of either debt exclusion or other funds. And so I think whatever those projects might be, they're far more significant than even the total of what you have before you here. And I think the intention is utilizing the Pulte funds to try to defray those costs. Thank you.
Jean Hardy, 247 Haverhill. I have a question on free cash. I know it's not free, and I don't remember what the balance we started with was, but this one article has, I think, almost $750,000, and we've gone through a number of other articles that have taken out of free cash. So where does that leave us?
Sure.
Mr. Gilberto.
Through you, Mr. Moderator. So we come to you with a financing plan in this warrant, and whatever decisions need to be made between when the warrant is printed and when we get here in the evening, that seeks to allocate all of the town's free cash either to one-time operating expenses, capital expenses, which you've just referenced up here, warrant articles that might not fit neatly into each category but are not recurring. We fund with free cash as well, but we seek to make sure that we allocate nearly every dollar of free cash. We don't just go on a spending spree with the money. You saw in the earlier articles that we set funding aside into our general stabilization fund, our capital improvement stabilization fund, our out-of-district education transportation funds as well. So we try to come to you with a plan for all of those funds. This year, I think the balance, Lorian, you said it was $1,500 would be left unaccounted for if all of the articles were funded as they are slated to be proposed. So we try to, again, limit the use to those one-time expenses and set funding aside for a future need as appropriate.
Thank you. Kathy Stewart, Riverside Drive. I'm asking for a point of clarification, please. And I apologize for maybe that I missed it or I misunderstood it. When the override, when the override passes, with the exception of the three main projects in here, will these all be included as part of the override?
Mr. Gilberto.
Through you, Mr. Moderator. Everything that's printed in your warrant, which is mailed to the home, I think folks have seen it. That's a copy of what's in the warrant right up on the screen there. All of those projects are slated to be funded under the plan that's here. None of them are contingent on the override. In the later slide that Mrs. Galvin had, we showed needs moving forward. The top three projects are slated to be funded through the override. The debt service, so paying back the loan, is slated to be funded through the override. We intend to come back to town meeting, should the override pass, to seek the appropriation of funding separately for those projects. We'll already have the ability for the borrowing under the funds from the override to construct them. If the override does not pass, those top three projects are likely to come back for, again, appropriation at town meeting, but contingent on a debt exclusion, which would be a separate tax increase.
Follow-up question, am I to understand correctly then that the funding for the projects for the schools that are in this are not part of the override?
That's correct, yes.
I don't have any words to say. With what we're putting in for the schools, why can't the capital improvements be put under the override? I mean, for goodness sakes, you're bleeding us to death as it is with the schools. And now they need more stuff and we have to pay for that separately? I mean, granted, it's coming out of the free cash. I'm just not understanding, and I apologize for that, but I'd like a clarification, please.
Mr. Gilberto.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So this article, which is an annual article that comes to town meeting, is funded within the limits of Proposition 2.5.
Okay.
Has nothing to do with an override. It's not an additional tax increase. The folks at the front of the room here have made a determination over the years, with the blessing of town meeting, to fit these into that 2.5% increase number and not seek an override or debt exclusion for these projects. So just to clarify that, the prioritization of the projects, as you saw, there's a list of projects that are not funded that were requested, and we go through that priority exercise every year in public meetings to come up with a plan that fits within the limits of Proposition 2.5.
All right, thank you so much for the clarification.
Mr. Yule.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Regarding the Hillview portion of this article, how did we get to $2 million for a roof? And cost improvements. I asked that question because, oh, this thing's in my way. I asked that question because I know that the Capital Improvement Committee does a real good job trying to break things down, prioritize their funds and so on in such a way that we can get as much bang for the buck. But $2 million for a roof, it just seems so exorbitant to me. And why can't the Hillview Commission itself cover its own groundkeeping responsibilities?
Mr. Gilberto.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Through you, so to be clear, the project is proposed to be funded utilizing enterprise funds. So revenue that comes into the Hillview Enterprise is paying for this particular project, not the taxpayer. Secondly, with regard to the amount, this came in as a less expensive project. As the Hillview Commission has gone through the study and preliminary design phase of the project, they have identified additional issues that need to be addressed with the function hall building. It has a large roof in many different smaller buildings that are adjoining at different levels, and this accounts for what they have received for a cost estimate. Again, it's an estimate for the project. The project would be competitively bid as required under state law, so whatever comes back for the cost would be what the market has dictated after advertising is the lowest cost.
To you, Mr. Moderator, how many bids were received for that roof?
Mr. Gilberto.
Through you, Mr. Moderator. So projects are not customarily bid out until an appropriation is in hand. We work with a designer or an owner's project manager to come up with a budget or estimate that we bring here for authorization. The general working standard, and you can deviate from it, but the general standard in public construction is to work with a designer or a project manager, come up with a cost estimate, seek authority for funding to do the project, and then solicit bids. So we could get anywhere from 1, 2, 3, or more bids when we advertise. It goes in the newspaper. Some folks probably see it in the newspaper advertised. It goes to a central register, which is advertised statewide and beyond. It goes in another advertising through it's called Combuys as well. So we go to the market, and there are firms that specialize in public construction, and they generally are the ones that bid. But I will note that over the years, Mr. O'Leary, I'm sure would agree, the Hillview Commission has been fairly successful in its bidding and been able to get maybe a smaller firm bid at a lower cost to do things. So their bidding has generally worked out favorably. But to be clear, this is an estimate.
Okay, so it's an estimate, so it can be higher or less. Oh, sorry, Mr. Moderator.
Yeah. Mr. Moderator, if the bids come in excess of what's authorized, then they would need to either change the scope and re-advertise or seek additional funding. So,
Thank you.
Amy?
I have a couple questions. First, I'd like to understand what the modular feasibility study for the school department is. I'm a little confused by that, and I'd just like some information.
Mr. Moderator, I'll just give an
Mr. Gilberto.
initial response while the superintendent of schools comes forward. I think folks in here, some of you were involved in the decision-making to acquire modular classrooms. Many of those facilities are aging. The school committee is looking to come up with a comprehensive plan for how to replace them as they age. I'll ask the superintendent to add anything further he'd like to.
Dr. Daly.
Mr. Moderator, thank you. As Mr. Gilberto said, this is the modular units that we have at our schools that are at the end of their useful life, and this is a study to see what needs to be done to rehab those areas and what needs to be built in the future.
So isn't that something that our building commissioner might be able to do for us? Like, why do we have to have a study? I'm just saying we have had several studies in this town, and in my opinion, a lot of it is wasteful spending. So if this is a study to see if these are able to be repaired, is it something that our building commissioner or something that we can spend less money on?
Michael can speak to
Mr.
that.
Gilberto.
Through you, Mr. Moderator, we both know Mr. Noel, he's very capable, has a lot of expertise, but there's a considerable amount of exploration of the condition of the facilities, cost estimate that needs to happen as well, things that are maybe outside the scope of what his day-to-day responsibilities are. To reiterate, the standard in public construction is to go through some sort of master planning and study phase for most projects to come up with what your options are, what might be more expensive, what might be less expensive, what might be a larger or smaller project, what might have a longer useful life, what might have a shorter useful life. So those are all the things that get evaluated in the study phase. And I'll speak as a member of the Capital Improvement Planning Committee. I think our thinking was they have the capability to make some small temporary repairs on one of the schools. Is it the little school? No, it's the hood school, sorry. On the roof, yeah. So there'll be some smaller projects for do some short-term repairs, but for the modulars, it's a much more involved project that could be replacing with modulars. It could be replacing with permanent construction. It's going to depend on the alternatives.
So once that study's done, you're going to most likely come back to town meeting asking for more money to either replace them, repair them, or build something new. I guess that's a question?
Mr. Gilberto.
I won't speak on behalf of the school committee, but what I heard in the meetings is yes, this would ultimately lead to a recommendation for a plan to address the deteriorating conditions of these modulars, yes. And that would require funding at town meeting.
Okay, and just another question. Just listening to Mr. Yule talk, and you saying that some of these bids will come in under what we are allocating here. It's a possibility. It's a possibility, not definite. Some of them may come in over, I don't know. But if they do come in under, I just want it to be explained, what happens with that extra money? Say it's a $2 million cost that you're appropriating for the Hillview, and they get it at $1,500,000. What happens with that $500,000 that's left?
Mr. Gilberto.
Through you, Mr. Moderator, once the commission has notified the accountant that they have completed construction and borrowing, in this case, I believe it's a bond authorization, is that correct? Yes. So it's a bond authorization, so in the end, we're going to borrow for what we ultimately need for the project. We would not borrow for that amount. If it was a free cash appropriation, they would notify the accountant that they were complete with the project. Whatever is left would close out to their version of free cash, money left over from a previous year, known as retained earnings.
And on the school department side, a $75,000 request for classroom window replacement, if that ends up costing $50,000, because the school only goes by a bottom line budget, what happens with the $25,000 that's left over from that project?
In this particular instance, a capital project, it would be closed out to free cash.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Allison Martin, Parsonage Lane. I move to call the question to a vote.
Move to the question. All those in favor of moving to the question? Opposed?
No.
Motion carries. We are now voting on the capital article, Article 24, in its entirety. The amendment failed. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Mr. Massey, now I know why you want to talk. Article 25.
Mr. Moderator.
Oh, wait. Don't talk. Didn't say.
Mr. Moderator, I move to admit Senator Bruce Tarr.
I have a motion to admit to the meeting. Any debate? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Welcome, Bruce. Sorry I made you wait so long. You can sit in a chair if you want, or hang out with your partner there. Article 25, Mr. Macy.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Article 25, I move to appropriate from free cash the amount of $50,000 for repairs and improvements to municipal buildings, including all costs incidental and related thereto, as specified in Article 25, as printed in the warrant.
The recommendation for the Select Board, Mr. Macy.
Select Board recommends.
Finance Committee.
Finance Committee recommends.
Further discussion? Pat?
Pat Fillmore, 24 Fieldcrest Terrace. Funding the building repairs. Again, Pulte funds. You told me yesterday and many other times that you're saving that $16 million for the bigger and better projects that have to be taken care of. We have to repair the buildings. Use the Pulte funds.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Article 26, Mr. Macy.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Article 26, I move to appropriate from free cash the sum of $24,500 for repairs to the Reverend Daniel Putnam House, including all costs incidental and related thereto, and further to authorize the Select Board to enter into a grant agreement with the North Reading Historical and Antiquarian Society for said society to receive and expand such funds for the intended purpose in accordance with all public procurement and other requirements applicable to the town, as specified in Article 26 as printed in the warrant.
Recommendation for the Select Board, Mr. Macy.
Select Board recommends.
Finance Committee.
Finance Committee recommends.
Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Article 27.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Article 27, I move to authorize the expenditure of such sum as may be allotted from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Chapter 90 apportionment, or other state roadway reimbursement programs for the purpose of constructing, reconstructing, or maintaining roadways within the town of North Reading, as specified in Article 27 as printed in the warrant.
Recommendation for the motion, Mr. Macy.
Select Board recommends.
Finance Committee.
Finance Committee recommends.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Article 28, Mr. Studo.
Thank you, everybody, for coming the second night. I know it's long. I also know I have the last articles before the bar or the bed, so hopefully it goes a little quick. Article 28, I move to authorize the Director of the Department of Public Works to accept easements on behalf of the town as specified in Article 28 as printed in the warrant.
Recommendation from the Select Board. Mr. Studo.
Select Board recommends.
Finance Committee. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Article 29.
Article 29, I move to authorize the lease of town-owned real property at 166 Chestnut Street as specified in the Article 29 as printed in the warrant.
Recommendation from the Select Board.
Select Board recommends.
Finance Committee.
Finance Committee recommends.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Article 30, Mr. Studo.
Point of order, Mr. Moderator, to this article. There may be a lot of discussion on this upcoming article, I don't know. But I just want people to understand something. When they move to the question, they move to the question because they don't want to be here or they don't want to hear somebody else's thoughts on an issue. As far as this issue is concerned and the issues following, okay, I ask you not to come here and move to the question so that everybody can be heard and everybody can express their thoughts on a given article. Okay, stay and listen to what other people have to say.
Thank you. It's not a point of order.
Okay, I'm sorry, I used the wrong term. Okay,
not a
my
point
point
of
is made. Okay, I made my point.
And anybody in the body is allowed to get up and move to the question, and if people want to continue to debate, they will decline to move to the question.
I understand that. Okay.
So not a point of order.
Just making sure it's right.
Yeah.
He signed it. Yeah, perfect.
Let's try. We're on 30. Article 30, Mr. Rudolph.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move to commit and refer Article 30 to the Community Planning Commission for further study and report to the 2024 Fall Annual Town Meeting. I'm sorry. I gotta move it up a little bit.
You're taller than Vincent.
Everybody's taller than me.
I'm Dave with the...
Oh, everybody is, sorry.
I'm Dave Rudloff with the CPC. The table down the end, we're usually outside, but they brought the table in finally, you know. And I apologize, you couldn't hear me. I move to commit and refer Article 30 to the Community Planning Commission for the further study and report to the 2024 Fall Annual Town Meeting or the next available town meeting thereafter.
Before I take the recommendations, I apologize for mispronouncing your name. It's Rudloff, not Rudolph.
Around the holidays, it's Rudolph, you know, but yeah, it's a little late.
Last night and tonight, too long for me, especially with a broken wing. Anyway, can I have the recommendation from the Select Board, please?
Select Board recommends.
You want a stool? Finance Committee.
Excuse me.
You recommend that action.
Yes.
Yeah.
I gotta put this down.
Yep.
The Select Board recommends 3-2.
3 to 2. Thank you. Finance Committee have a recommendation?
The CPC recommends 4-1.
Sir.
Thank you, Jeff Gannon, 3 Linwood Avenue. I'd just like to say I do think the committee or the commission has done their homework here. I believe this is something that the town doesn't want to fight the state on, lose any funding. I think it's the appropriate spot for it. So I would just like to speak out in support of this. Thank you.
Further discussion? Mr. O'Leary? Mr. Rudloff?
Mr. Moderator, so the question's on the floor, but I could give, because this impacts this, the next two, this one and the next two
If
articles.
you'd like to,
It might answer the question.
less than 5 minutes, you can have
Yep.
to state the case for this and the next ones. Thank you.
Thank you. So our town planner, Danielle McKnight, has given numerous presentations on the state's MBTA communities law at town meetings, select board meetings, and CPC meetings over the last 2.5 years. In lieu of repeating the presentation once again tonight, which we're able to do, I believe it may be helpful to provide you some of the arguments that we've been hearing, for some for, some against, and some questioning Mass General Law 40A, Section 3A, the MBTA communities law. Number one, the two parcels being proposed are a no-brainer. The two proposed parcels are 100 and 104 Lowell Road, Edgewood Apartments and Martin's Landing. Currently, Edgewood has 406 apartments. Martin's Landing presently has 376 condo units, with another 126 under construction. When completed fall 25, the total unit count in Martin's Landing will be 502 units. The total for both parcels will be 908 units, or 96 units above the state's assigned capacity for these parcels. Number two, and I have four, the constitutionality of the law. There are some that question this law and point to home rule. That's Article 89 of the Massachusetts Constitution, which gives cities and towns the independent municipal powers to adopt, amend, repeal local bylaws, and to control land uses. Some point to the fact that we or any town must vote to approve this zoning change as evidence of this right. That includes the right to vote yes or no. Number three, let's wait and see what other towns are doing. To date, of the 177 MBTA communities, 44 have chosen to vote yes and adopt the zoning changes. 16 towns, to include Holden, Milton, Marshfield, Norwell, Rockport, Marblehead, Wakefield, Hanson, Boxborough, Seekonk, Hopkinton, Winthrop, Middleton, Foxborough, Rowley, Tewksbury have voted no at their recent town meetings. And lastly, the deadline is 6 months away. The state's deadline to comply with this law is at the end of the year, December 31st. The next town meeting is October 4th, 4 months from now. There is no requirement that we must vote for this here in June. In summary, we believe it is the best interest of the town to study this further. We encourage the residents to join us at our public meetings over the next few months, where we will have this subject on our agenda. We welcome your feedback, questions, and concerns. Thank you. This is my first time up the mic, too. So.
Nice job. Mr. Yule.
Yes, I just want to clarify the motion at hand. The Finance Committee said they will pass over as opposed to the motion. And pass over, from what I understand, means that you can't review this for another 2 years. That's what has been explained to me by legal counsel of North Reading.
What's the point here?
She said they said they'd pass over.
They voted to pass over
That's
the
right.
articles.
Okay, that's the difference. Okay, now let the attorney explain.
It's not a motion. They would.
Well, they voted to pass over. I just want to be careful. I spoke.
They didn't
to the attorney
vote to
myself.
pass over. They
did. They said we pass over.
Did you vote to pass over the article? You're not making a motion. You're not amending it.
It's a recommendation.
You have no recommendation. Is that a fair statement? They have no recommendation.
So they're changing. Okay, that's good.
Go ahead.
Yes, Robert Atkinson, 82 Elm Street. I'm in favor of a delay because I think this is a vast overreach by the Commonwealth, and I side with those who see it as unconstitutional and a vast and a great overreach. So any delay we can use to study both how to oppose this without costing the town money, because the penalty for voting this down is the state will withhold state aid from the town. So my understanding is that we need every arrow in the quiver to plan our attack, so to speak. So I would like to make sure that we don't vote on this now and that we at least delay till October, but ultimately I'd like to see this defeated. Thank you.
Mr. O'Leary.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I was one of 2 members who did not support this motion as presented to you because I was unclear. And again, I was unable to make the meeting, but we did get a report from the liaison and the town administrator who were present at the meeting. My concern is I want to make sure that this body has the opportunity to vote on coming into compliance with this state law before the deadline of December 31st. What's proposed here is to bring it back to the 2024 annual fall town meeting or the next available town meeting thereafter. I am curious, and again, I would like some clarification from the Planning Commission. Is it their intention and their commitment to bring it to town meeting floor to allow the voters here in North Reading to determine whether they want to come into compliance with the law or not prior to the deadline? I don't want it kicked away because the next town meeting after the annual town meeting in October is next June. We then fall out of compliance and then we have no ability to take advantage of the state programming and funding that may be available for certain projects that are very important to us. So I don't want this to default because the Planning Commission is not going to bring it to town meeting for action and determination by the voters in time to fall into compliance or intentionally not comply. What I'm looking for is a commitment from the Planning Commission to bring it to town meeting in October for that determination. Otherwise, by default, you're not in compliance and our funding, some funding may be at risk, and we have a lot of projects on the board here. And you know, we have our state representative and our state senator here. They can tell you how it works and how it doesn't work. If you're not in compliance, you're ineligible and they're unable to assist us. So my question to the Planning Commission, are you committing to bringing this to town meeting for action in the October town meeting?
Mr. Rudloff.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. That is the intention of the CPC, to have everyone vote on it. We, and especially I as chair, I don't want to be the, one of 5 people total voting on this for the entire town. We do want the rest of the town to vote on this, and I strongly, we've had a lot of public outreach, and we have it on our agenda every 2 weeks when we meet, and we really would appreciate whether you want to attend by Zoom or you want to attend in person and get educated on it, because what I hear online, and I'm one of those people that I'm not online, but what I hear is a lot of disinformation, misinformation. Just come to the meetings, get online, you'll hear about it. You'll hear about, as Mr. O'Leary mentioned, the grants, the real picture of what the grants mean, how many of them we've ever even received. That's important to know. It doesn't mean that makes your decision, but I think if you have all the information, you'll come to the October meeting and have everything you need. The time part is, like I mentioned, there's people that feel very strongly about the constitutionality, and as you see, there's 16 towns. Right now, during this week, there'll be another, I don't know how many town meetings like ours, there'll be another group of people, towns, I'm sorry, as well as people for and against, and we'll get to see that picture. So I think we have a habit of rushing into things a lot in this town, what I've witnessed, And I think there's no problem with us voting on this in October. And if that's, again, what Mr. O'Leary is asking for, that is going to be the case. I hope that answers your question. Is that good?
Mr. O'Leary.
Moderator, based upon that, I move to amend Article 30 to read to commit and refer Article 30 to the Community Planning Commission for further study and report to the annual 2024 Fall Annual Town Meeting for action.
This is the, so you want to speak to the amendment for
Yeah,
just
so
a
just
minute?
on the amendment, I just want to make sure that the commitment, and again, I appreciate Mr. Rudloff's commitment to doing so, well then let's follow through with the motion that's before us and have them bring it back to town meeting for action in October. And then, 12,000 people have the opportunity to make the determination, not 4 or 5 over here. So I appreciate it if you support the amendment. Thank you.
So the amendment would just make it that this is a commitment to have this article placed after they go back and study it some more. Article will be placed on the October town meeting warrant. Okay? Is there discussion on the amendment first?
I just want, Amy Fillmore, 24 Fieldcrest Terrace. I said before, I think one of the downfalls of this town is educating the community. I don't think we do it before we vote on certain things, or we don't do it enough before we vote on certain things. So I agree that this needs to be pushed back to at least October so that because we have plenty of time. I've watched some of the planning commission meetings. I'm still confused. I've talked to the town planner. I still have questions. I just think educating the public and the public putting as much interest into it as they can to get that education is important.
Yeah, real quick, my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but... Oh, yeah, Mark Penny, 12 Irwin Road. So my understanding is that the communities that so far have voted against this are in federal court, or they're suing through the federal court system because they feel that it's an unconstitutional, it's a sovereignty issue, because by our Constitution, every town, city in this state has control over their destiny via the planning board, the zoning boards. And so that's why it's going into federal court to stop this. So, and I'll be really brief, but Mr. O'Leary, you want to kind of, I know, have this all decided because you're worried about losing grants or something like that. But let me tell you, if the federal system, court system, sides with us, it's a moot question about whether the state can blackmail each individual towns, and that's blackmail, by holding back grants. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Mr. Moderator. As I understand it, there's 10 communities that are in that lawsuit, that federal one right now, and again, most of these votes were in May, around May 8th. So I'm not sure what that number is, and you'd have to check the news. And there's also some local ones. I know there's a Rockport and groups joining that, but essentially they have their different reasons. Every town's unique, but it does hinge on home rule, I think, is the key component of that. Thank you.
Did you take a position on the amendment? The planning commission?
Mr. Zell.
You did. So, you did it.
I just called on the end.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'd just like to tell you that the Community Planning Commission has worked tirelessly on this, hours and hours, and gone to meetings and educated themselves on this. This they have not taken lightly. I would ask that you not vote on the amendment that you go along with the CPC and what they're asking and give them the time they need. And I would just like to also add, we've talked about home rule, which gives every city and town the right to zone the way they want to zone, to make their city or town look the way that they want it to look, and this takes it away. Makes it the way the state wants it to look. So I would just ask you to trust the Community Planning Commission on this and vote the way they are asking you to vote. The one thing I'll add also, and I'll end with this, is what kind of a law asks you to come to town meeting to vote, but if you vote no, we'll punish you. So vote the way we're telling you to, or you will be punished. That's pretty much what this is, so.
Mr. O'Leary.
Just a couple of points here. You know, in relation to the whole argument as to, you know, what the government overreach, the whole thing, all that's going to be settled. Right now, we have an opportunity to come into compliance. Right now, everybody's in compliance until December 31st. Every community is in compliance till December 31st, anyway. But after December 31st is when this other stuff kicks in. You should have that choice with the guidance from the Planning Commission, with the guidance from the Board of Selectmen, with the guidance from Town Council, who has already advised us to come into compliance with this. Because if these other federal court cases are determined in favor of those communities, then the law is null and void and it doesn't matter. But if it does matter and the state prevails, it can cost you money. Well, you should know that eyes wide open going in and should have the opportunity to vote on that prior to that deadline. It shouldn't be pushed off without you having a say. Because the final say rests here with town meeting. It doesn't rest with the Planning Commission, doesn't rest with the Select Board, it rests with you. All I'm trying to do is give you that opportunity, to ensure that you have that opportunity. And we don't have that commitment yet from the Planning Commission to give you that choice, and that's not right. You want to talk about home rule? You want to talk about self-determination? Well, let's seize control of it now. Remand it back to them to come back and report back to you with a proposal. And then you can vote it up or down, whatever you so choose, with the information. In the meantime, Town Council has advised us to comply if we can. Danielle McKnight has done a fabulous job of putting us in a position where it has minimal impact on us at all. And I say, take control of the situation now, require them to come back to October town meeting so that you can determine whether you want to be in compliance or not. That argument is for another day. But the way that it's worded now, they can punt it beyond October and you can get harmed without having a say. That's not fair.
Mr. Yule.
Yes. Hello? Yep. Okay. I urge that you vote no on this amendment. To clarify something that Steve said, he said that if it's not done in, paraphrasing you, that if it's not done in October, the next meeting is after December 31st. You can still call a special town meeting and come back. So there are many options that you do have. The loss of home rule is a very frightening thing. Steve, nor I live in Pulte Homes, Martin's Landing. We don't live there, so it's not going to impact us as much, okay? So this amendment should not be voted for. Thank you.
Sasha Spalla, 121 Chestnut. I do want to point out that we're now on day 2 of this town meeting, and this seems like a particularly important issue to a bunch of folks, and unfortunately, the conclusion is that there are a lot of people that I think probably wanted to be here tonight but could not do 2 nights in a row, and this does seem like something that should be voted on by at least a solid representation of the town. And there are people who are not here tonight because they could not get babysitters, they could not do 2 nights in a row, right? It sounds like this is the right thing to do, is to move this to October, is it not? So that there, an actual representation of the body could be here? Is that, I'm just confirming that this is what we're asking, right? right? We're asking for this to be moved to October.
The event, so the motion is to refer it back to the CPC to be presented at the fall annual town meeting or the next town meeting thereafter. Mr. O'Leary's amendment is requiring it to the CPC to bring it to the October town meeting.
Then bring it to the October town meeting when everybody can be here to represent themselves.
Mr. Moderator?
Mr. Rudloff.
Thanks, Mr. Moderator. Someone a lot smarter than me made this recommendation. I think the article as written is better than what Mr. O'Leary suggests, and I'll explain why. It was explained to me. Because of the opposition, if we're already at 16 towns against, say this goes up to 40 towns against, the state might be swayed to delay the deadline, work more with the towns, whatever. If they delay the deadline or push off the deadline into 2025, we're basically here saying that it has to be voted on in October, not giving us the flexibility. The article as written gives us that flexibility. As chairman of the CPC, I'm telling you that if it's not extended and we get up to that point or we don't get an indication it's going to be extended, we're going to vote on it on October. We're not looking to do this in committee or something like that behind the scenes. That's not how I operate. Some of the reasons why I joined the CPC, to have more, exposure to different projects and visibility to the rest of the residents. So I thank you for that. This thing is really low.
Samantha Meyer, 2 Como Road. I just want to sort of clarify the October meeting, sort of going to call it a deadline, where you're saying that potentially the state could extend their deadline. Could we then do this same process and do another amendment to say, you know what, we do want a little bit more time to study? What I'm asking is, like, are we committed to voting on this in October if that state deadline's been extended?
Mr. Moderator.
That's a hypothetical, I can't.
Yeah, that's hypothetical, but no. If in October we could do the same thing we're doing right now and pass over it. I don't, unless I'm wrong here, and it could have counsel, I don't think what Mr. O'Leary is saying forces us to vote on it. Okay. Am I wrong?
Mr. O'Leary.
Again, what my motion to amend does is it requires the Community Planning Commission to bring it back to the October town meeting. The October town meeting warrant articles would look exactly probably as they look right now, in front of you right now in this warrant. It does not preclude October town meeting from doing the exact same thing that's being proposed here right now if they deem it to be in the town's best interest, if the voters determine to be. I just want to be sure, I want to ensure that you have that opportunity in October. The motion as it is written does not give you that. If the Planning Commission does not bring a recommendation to town meeting, whether it be to do what they're suggesting right now again, or something else, we don't have a choice. We have no say. My amendment forces it to come to the October town meeting so you can determine how you want to move forward. If you want to punt it down the road again, you have the same opportunities you'd have this evening by remanding it back to them. Again, there's also a whole bunch of nuances as far as if you pass it over, whether you can bring it up for a year. We don't want that to happen. We want to maintain control here. My amendment forces it to come back to you to make the choice in October.
Call the question.
That's all, and it's a choice to either
On the amendment.
comply, vote not to comply, or vote to remand it back to
sorry.
the Planning Commission for further study. The motion as presented to you, the main motion, does not necessarily provide you that opportunity. I want to ensure that you have it.
Can I have a couple of minutes, please?
Yes, you may. Yes.
I thought you were saving me.
I'm trying to. No,
You're not my hero anymore.
I just wanted to clarify something so that there's no confusion about what the state may or may not do between now and October.
Lean into
Louder.
the mic if you could, please.
I'll get there. Just wait a minute. It's highly unlikely, almost impossible, that anything substantial is going to happen on the state level before October. It would require legislation being passed by both houses. That takes time. You have representatives and senators here who can tell you that. The court case in the Supreme Judicial Court in Massachusetts is scheduled for argument in October. That doesn't have a date yet. Once it's argued, it then has to be decided by the court and the decision issued. That will take time. That is unlikely to happen before the end of the year, although given the urgency, the court could get to it. It's highly unlikely a federal court is going to take up the issue until the state court has had a chance, because this is state law. So ultimately, no one should believe that somehow the state is going to take some action to change things before this town meeting gets a chance. So, thank you.
Deb Picciuto, 26 Lindor Road. I call the question on the amendment, please.
We have a move to the question. Move to the question. On the amendment. To stop the debate on the amendment and take a vote on the amendment so we can get back to the main article and maybe go home sometime. Okay. Are you, when you stand over there, I want to call on you. Steve, Nick, did you want to speak?
I did. I did too.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. Okay. I have a motion on the floor, however, to amend, to move to the question. All those in favor of moving to the, if you say yes, we're going to stop debating the amendment. We're going to vote on the amendment, up or down, and we'll go back to the main motion, and we can still have a discussion about the article. All those in favor of voting on the amendment now, please say, to move to the question, which I was jumping ahead a step. All those in favor of ending debate, move to the question on the amendment. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Motion carries. The Finance Committee has asked to be recognized.
The Finance Committee inadvertently voted to pass over on the main article. It is our intention to support the amendment.
So now on the amendment. The amendment requires the CPC to bring a report to the October town meeting. Is that correct? Right? Is that? Right. So, the amendment will require CPC to bring this back to the October town meeting. That's what we're voting on, okay? All right. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Oh. All right. For those that are sitting in the middle section of the bleachers, please move to the right or left of the green line. You know, follow the cords that are in the middle here. I need the counters. All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your hands to be counted. Yeah. Oh, we don't need 2/3.
It's harder
Oh,
than it sounds.
Wait.
Keeping that hand.
All those opposed? Twenty? The amendment passes. It is 95 to 68. We're now on the main motion as amended. Further discussion? Mr. Mason.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I have one quick question, and then I have sort of a rhetorical question. But my first question might be for the CPC or Ms. McKnight. Reading the law, understanding within a half mile, you need to be within a half mile of a station. Have we ever asked for an exemption to the state due to the lack of our infrastructure and not within the requirements of a half a mile?
Danielle.
The state has made clear to us that they will not be offering extensions to communities. Exemptions or exemptions either. They have made it clear they will not be offering either extensions or exemptions. And as to the half-mile requirement, we have also made clear that those communities that have MBTA stations within half a mile of their borders must comply with that requirement, but those communities that do not have an MBTA station within half a mile of their borders do not need to comply with that particular aspect of the legislation.
Mr. Massey.
Thank you, Ms. McKnight. My opinion on this is if you are taking a test and you elect your officials in the CPC for a reason to trust them, they've done their homework, they've come to you with a recommendation to push it to October with a little help from Mr. O'Leary. But in my opinion, all of us has gone to school, all of us have taken tests. When you need to take a test, would you rather have more time to study or less time to study for that test? I'm looking to give our residents more time to learn about this subject. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Jeff Griffin, and I'm a member of the CPC. And I just want to let you know that we've worked very, very hard on this. I myself, for a year, I've been working very, very diligently in studying more state law than I choose to study. And I can tell you that this is a topic that's very, very sensitive, because what we're doing is we're talking about the constitutionality of our autonomy in this town. We're talking about our sovereignty in the zoning rights. Now, there is established law in 1966 that was set forth called the Home Rule Act. The Home Rule Act basically allows us to do that. So the state comes out and they say, well, hey, you know, we got an idea. We're going to come out with this 3A MBTA law, and it actually contradicts the standing law from 1966. So what happens is the state actually comes into your town, and they require us, that's under the requirement that Steve was talking about, and the deadlines and all that, they require us to actually conform to this law. But this law is basically, it's in suit, so is the law settled? That's the question. It is not settled law. The law from 1966, the Homestead Act, the Home Rule Act, is settled law. So that gives us our autonomy and our sovereignty. So what's happened is, we've gone back and forth many, many times, and there are so many more questions. Our intention tonight, and I'm speaking for myself, and I'm very passionate about this, the decision we make with this can have a really big impact on the town in more than just one way. It can, you can, if you look at some of the study cases, the town of Cambridge has an overlay, and there's, you can look into it, you can read it, but we are finding out that the article, it's very difficult. We still have Article 31 and 32 to vote on, okay? This is just Article 30, and we're killing this thing. And honestly, in all fairness, I don't think, for the work that we've put in at the CPC, I don't think that it was fair to come up here and amend this. Because what the amendment has done, and I'm just speaking for myself, that amendment has confused you even more. This article, and that, you can shake your head, Steve, and that's fine, and I respect that. But I'm telling you, that has done nothing more than confuse this. Our intent was more time. We're just asking for more time. We know the deadline. We've been looking at this for a very long time. We understand the deadline. Sometimes your sovereignty, one more minute. Sometimes your sovereignty and your autonomy, I don't believe you can put a price tag on that. This town has been taking care of its zoning by itself for a very, very long time, and I just think that this law is very unfair, and it should be challenged by the people. The people, if they don't like that, they should stand up and say, you know what, Milton, I'm not, they said no, and Holden said no, and Dave had a list. This list, I can tell you, will increase the closer we get to the end of this year. I think time is very important, and I would just hope that the body here on Article 31 and 32 would not accept any amendments and move forward on those articles without that. Thank you.
Good evening, Dan Mills with the Finance Committee. Just wanted to provide some clarification on our recommendation. As it was documented in the warrant, we had previously voted to recommend. After hearing some of the informational sessions from the Planning Commission, as well as some of the other information that we've gathered, we voted to pass over prior to town meeting. In doing so, we inadvertently triggered a technicality that pushes this, under our understanding is that it pushes this article out for 2 years, can't be heard for 2 years. So we have reconsidered our vote. We revoted it to the main motion, and we voted unanimously to recommend the main motion. Again, we feel strongly that this is the right location, that we do comply with the law. There are financial implications if we do not. So we do strongly suggest that this be brought back to October town meeting, and during the 4 months between now and then, that we find the facts and have further discussion, deliberation on the matter. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, Matt Meyer, 2 Como Road. Matt Meyer, 2 Como Road. I'm just a little confused what the current motion on the floor actually is.
It's the main motion.
Okay. I thought we already amended that motion that passed.
No.
Isn't that what we
amended
with our
the
hands?
motion. We're on the main motion. So any discussion now is on the main motion as amended.
Okay, so this is to move it to October? Okay.
Yeah.
So we accepted that amendment, is that right?
So the motion on the floor is the main motion. The main motion is to commit and refer Article 30 to the Community Planning Commission for further study and report to the annual fall town meeting. The amendment took out or the next available town meeting thereafter. So it is to send the articles, to not act on the article tonight, to allow the CPC time to continue to do the work they're doing, educate the community and all those other kinds of things, and then it's coming to October town meeting per the yes on the amendment.
All right, thank you for the clarification. I'd like to move to the question.
He can't make a statement and then move to the question.
You can't make a statement and then move to the question.
Thank you. Good night. Clarification. Clarification.
What? Yeah,
Again, Dan Mills from the Finance Committee, not to make this matter any more confusing, but
lean in closer.
Just want to make sure that it's understood that our vote was on the main motion as amended. Thank you.
Mr. O'Leary.
On the main motion as amended, I would urge everybody to support it. Again, there's a whole bunch of discussion to still be had on this issue, and there will be for the next several months. I would hope, based upon the vote of town meeting, that the Planning Commission in the next two articles would just strike those final words and put in for action, which is as I did, for the October town meeting, to help facilitate the meeting, so I wouldn't have to go forward and make a motion again to amend for the next two articles. Again, there's lots of discussion to be had, there's lots of differences of opinion, we have legal opinion, all the rest to be discussed at a future date. So what I'm looking for is to ask the Planning Commission to acquiesce to the wishes of town meeting as you've just expressed by supporting the amendment, that the next two articles also require them to come back to the 2024 fall annual town meeting for action. Otherwise, we'll have to go through the amendment process again.
That's what he's saying. Scribble that. Oh, so you don't read that. With me? Yeah. Because otherwise he's going to get he would get up and do it. He would. Okay. So read them that way. Okay. Thank you. Ma'am.
Penny Richards, 15 Leland Road, please. I move to the question.
Move to the question. All those in favor of moving to the question, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Oppose.
Motion carries. This is the main motion as amended, so it's coming to the October town meeting. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Motion carries. Mr. Rudloff. Article 31.
I move to commit and refer Article 31 to the Community Planning Commission for further study and report to the 2024 Fall Annual Town Meeting. The or next available town meeting was struck.
Can I have the recommendation from the Select Board, please?
Select Board recommends 3-2.
Finance Committee?
Finance Committee recommends.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Article 32, Mr. Rudloff.
I move to commit and refer Article 32 to the Community Planning Commission for further study and report to the 2024 Fall Annual Town Meeting.
Recommendation for the Select Board. Recommendation for the Select Board.
Select Board recommends 3-2.
Finance Committee.
Finance Committee recommends.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Motion carries. Article 33. Article 33.
Article 33, dissolve Veterans Memorial Committee. I move to approve Article 33 as printed in the warrant.
The recommendation for the Select Board.
Select Board recommends.
Recommendation for the Finance Committee on Article 33. Mr. Gilberto.
For the benefit of the body, just a brief explanation. Town meeting established a war memorial committee a number of years ago that is being proposed to be consolidated with an existing Veterans Events Committee so that we would have a single Veterans Committee focused on all matters veterans related. And therefore, because that original committee was established by town meeting action is required to allow for the consolidation to occur. The Select Board then intends to amend the charge of the Veterans Events Committee to incorporate those responsibilities. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Article 34.
I move to pass over Article 34 as printed in the warrant.
Can I get a recommendation from the Select Board? Oh, yep. Could you read my carry? If you need, you can call me up. I started using this, and it's not. Recommendation from the Select Board.
Select Board unanimously recommends.
For the Finance Committee. Chief Stats.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and thank you all for your patience. I just wanted to give you a little further explanation on why we're choosing to pass this article over. The article was for additional funding to go out for bid documents. As some of you may or may not know, we've been working on plans to renovate the current fire station. We feel that at this time, the committee feels that that is premature, and we need to explore further options and do a deeper analysis so that we can bring back a better and more comprehensive plan to how the fire department can best serve the community, at which time we want to have a better discussion with you all and then come up with the best option. So that's the explanation. If anybody has any questions, please let me know.
Any discussion? Amy?
Amy Sonia, 24 Fieldcrest Terrace. One question I have is there were several hundreds of thousands of dollars allocated from ARPA funding towards this project. And I believe those funds have to be encumbered by December 31st of 2024. What happens with that money?
Mr. Gilberto.
Through you, I'm looking out the corner of my eye to the Public Works Director, but I believe we have encumbered and in fact nearly entirely expended those funds for design.
So there's no balance left from the ARPA money?
Through you, there may be a small amount unencumbered or a bill unpaid, but we expect that by the end of the billing cycle in the month of June, we'll have expended it.
And my next question is there a reason why we didn't explore other opportunities before we chose to spend this money towards this?
Don't fight about it. Chief Stats?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So other options were not available at that point in time that we started to do this design, and changes, with our current staffing model that was approved by you all yesterday, have made this take a better look and a deeper dive into better options right now. And that's where we're trying to put the brakes on this project at this point and come back with a more comprehensive plan to discuss at a future town meeting.
Good evening.
Macy.
Nick Massey, 1 Rogers Circle. I'm in full support to pass this over. Public safety, as a select board member, public safety is one of our top priorities, if not spending your tax dollars efficiently. I think hand in hand, those two go together with passing this over and looking at other options. I understand the response time to get to Martin's Landing and the west side of town is currently double the standard of the National Fire Code, NFPA 1710. We just put in a big community on the west side of town, Martin's Landing. We can't set it and forget it. We need to accommodate them as well. We need to put a substation near them as well so we can serve them. Additionally, there's a lot of unknowns with this project, whether it's the temp facility, which brings more risk to the town, and it's not good for our guys. I wouldn't want my firefighters being in a temp facility after all they do for us. Lastly, in 2006, the fire department, the committee was notified that the study required a West Side fire station. They thought that was the best idea. Additionally, $10,000 in legal fees are being carried while we're building on wetlands, and from experience from doing projects on wetlands, you're going to have to pay a little bit more on legal fees. Mr. Gilberto, you understand. Last but not least, in being a new person to the select board, I've done my homework by reading the town charter, and I've read it over a couple times. What I did find was a section here, and I have a question. Section 5 in our town charters for the Finance Committee. Section 2.5.3 states, during their terms of office, committee members shall not hold any other public office in town or serve on any other board, committee, or commission of the town, except in an advisory capacity without the specific approval of town meeting. I understand we have currently a minimum of 2 Finance Committee members serving on a couple other boards in town. And I'd like to confirm if they've been approved at town meeting. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator.
Town council will respond to that.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Just very briefly, this question has come up a number of times over the years. Town council has consistently given the advice as long as a finance committee member is serving on a committee that has an advisory role, that is proper. So the question is always, what role does that other committee have? And I think the determination has been made here. I have not made it personally, that those other committees are advisory committees. They're not making final decisions, so that dual role can be go forward the way it is.
Mr. Gilberto.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. To clarify, the Fire Station Building Committee is advisory to the Department of Public Works, which is overseeing the project.
Quick question.
Mr. Mason.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. If you're a voting member, even to that point, how about a chair? Aren't you allocating money? And as a finance committee member said yesterday, the finance committee was designed to be independent. And I'm not sure this serves that purpose. That'll do it for me.
I didn't get that last part, sorry.
Mr. Moderator, there was one question and a statement that I heard.
Yeah. Okay.
Responding to the question, so the bill schedules, so the payment of bills is signed by the Public Works Director and the Department of Public Works, so they are in accordance with the contract that meets specifications that they worked with an architect to set and bid out. They're handling the administrative role. The director himself, I believe, is actually signing those bill schedules. Is that correct, Joe? So it is being paid for. Payments are being authorized by DPW.
Point of order, Mr. Moderator, how is this pertinent to the article itself? Because
It's not pertinent to the article itself.
so you made a determination.
With all due respect,
With all due respect, it's not pertinent to the article before the body.
how can you have a vote to pass over if one of the members is not legally allowed to vote by our bylaws? It's a violation of the bylaws from my interpretation. Thank you.
Your point, Mr. Moderator. It's not pertinent to the article.
It's not.
Before the town meeting, if town council has offered his opinion.
Pat?
Just a question. Somebody's making the point of $26 million to renovate the fire station. To, in other words, just put a Band-Aid on it like they do with a lot of other things in town. $26 million. Somebody is making that recommendation, be it whether it's the finance department or finance committee or whether it's the subcommittee of the fire department renovations. Somebody's doing it. And if you're working for the finance committee, you shouldn't be making recommendations for major projects.
Mr. York. Mr. Moderator, I have a question on those two committees that's being referenced, because I am finding this a little bit confusing. But who's the chairperson of both of these committees?
Can we get back to the question on the floor? The question on the, no.
Wait a minute, wait a minute. Let me tell you something. You are very disrespectful. I have been respectful to you, okay? All right? So I just want to ask a very simple question because it's on this article, because the people making the decision on this article, okay, are in that committee. Now, how is that not relevant to this question?
The motion is to pass over. You got the response from town council. Some people don't agree with it. What do you want me to do? Mr. O'Leary.
On the motion to pass over, initially, as a member of the board, we were asked to do something other than pass over, but it would have a similar effect. I was opposed to that. This particular project, as was being proposed tonight, and the expenditure of the money that you were being asked to allocate and appropriate this evening, was to bring it a final figure to you as to going out to bid for the project and moving forward. This project has been in the works for several years under the direction and guidance of the board, select board, and town meeting appropriations to move it forward. Of recent time, recent date, there's been a realignment of thought. So the building committee this evening recommended to the select board that we pass over the appropriation of the additional $70,000 or $75,000, whatever it was, to get the final bid package to you for October, to give them time to relook at the entire project and then report back to town meeting as to how they want to proceed. That's all that's being asked here tonight, is to pass over the $70,000 additional to get final bid numbers on the project as presented to town meeting several years ago and supported by the board up until 3 weeks ago. The determination by the building committee is to pass over now and they'll report back at a later date. We now support, because that recommendation is coming from the building committee, it didn't come to us until this evening. That's their recommendation to us. I support that recommendation. I support you moving to pass over.
Pat?
Clarification, and please don't be rude. In regards to what you're saying, Stephen, when was it voted on to renovate the fire department? I know we have looked into a new fire department. I know we have looked into a substation. I don't ever recall saying, oh, let's put a Band-Aid on the fire station we did, how many years ago? When they did the police and fire together?
Mr. Gilberto?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. A couple of points just to clarify. There was a police department renovation project that was done. I know there was a limited, I believe, apparatus floor project that was done, but that was the extent of that project. We didn't renovate the living quarters, didn't renovate the office space on the main floor. Secondly, with regard to the votes that were taken, there was a vote as recently as January special town meeting for additional funding in line with not just a renovation, but a renovation and expansion of the existing fire department. Prior to that, there was a vote of the select board at a public meeting for the use of the federal ARPA funding that was asked about earlier. And I believe in October of 2022 was a funding at town meeting. I think it was $200,000 for schematic design for that very project.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of passing over Article 34, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous? One more motion, Mr. Studo.
Most popular motion of the night. I move to adjourn, say nay, day nay.
Discussion, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Have a great night, everyone.
I have to sign it? Yeah, yeah.
Dave. Dave, can you just sign it? You want to move that stack so I can knock them all on the floor? Yeah, I'll see you later.